Vaughan, if someone just tune in, why they should stick to the end? What they will get out of it?
Yeah, great question, Gabe. Look, I think the fundamental piece we're very good at generating ideas, but it's after that point, and how do we actually implement innovation? It's sort of like what happens after the workshops. So I think it's great for anybody who's leading transformation, leading innovation projects. They'll be able to navigate the sort of political and social dynamics of organizations.
This comes from someone that's actually worked with over 350 leaders across 20 sectors. What's the actual pattern that you keep on seeing that no one actually talks about?
Yeah. Look, I think that it's probably less that people are not talking about it, but it is very much not addressed. And I sort of speak to that as context. I think context is the number one powerful piece, that if we can understand that and also enable change and innovation in context, that's the one that I think really is most powerful and people are avoiding, because ultimately it's the hardest thing, because we're talking about anytime there's innovation, we're asking people to do something different, whether it's a simple consumer product or whether it's actually a more systemic change or transformation piece. People need to be doing something different, and that's hard.
And define for anyone listening context in this situation.
Yeah, so I look at it as not just the customer, but we've got customers, we've got users of a product or a service. We then have the organisation. So with this book, we're also speaking to actually implementing innovation in organisations, and large-scale organisations as well. So when we look at that, we're looking at the entire interconnected system that could be the organisation, then it perhaps goes out a level to that particular sector, and then obviously the various other stakeholders that influence or connect into that system. So depending on the particular problem and the setting that it is, that's how wide the context piece can influence a positive outcome or a negative outcome.
And wherever we'll make so much money for the company or for the stakeholders and so on. But what's the other side of the coin?
Yeah, great question. So look, I forget the exact statistics, but and there's been many studies done around this, but there's somewhere between 75% to 90% of all new products and services or change transformation efforts fail. And so when we look at that, there's some key components. I think that most of the time organisations jump to solutioning way too fast. So they actually don't fully understand what the real problem is, and that's why that context piece is really important. And then often it's, well, now we have the solution, people are just going to start adopting this or utilising the change or the product or service. But we actually need to do that with people. So in all of that, typically, when new products and services are developed, if they've developed using like a stage gated sort of process where it goes through various approval steps, that can be 18 months to 3 years before something is fully developed. So, and it's not to say that that's not useful. It absolutely is, depending on that context and the particular sector. But as a sort of general, when you look at that, how much resources, effort, reputation, all of these things can be wasted or at risk because we're not sort of fully understanding that context, that real problem, and looking at ways about how we can learn what is a better way forward.
And how you can actually make that in practice, like how you can truly understand if the idea that you have, if the solution that you provide, it's actually useful.
Right. So I think the first step is that in any solution ultimately is best driven off insight. And so to do that, there's some really practical ways of going about this in the early phases. And so, firstly, it would be while we sort of frame up a bit of a theme about what the real problem is, we sort of need to hold that loosely and go out into the field and actually start speaking with some of these various stakeholders. Obviously, the people that are at the centre of the problem that we're looking to help, but then some of the other stakeholders in that kind of immediate sort of system, and have some conversations. Listen to what their worldviews are like, what's happening for them, what their pain points are, what they're looking to achieve, how they're actually going about solving a problem now. That can shine some really interesting information. We call that bright spots. So, often in these large systems, when something is failing, that there's often things that are actually working, and sometimes we should just be doing more of that. So it's really going out into the system and speaking and observing what is actually going on. So getting close to the problem and then working out with the various stakeholders as well, so that you start getting a range of data that you can start making sense. You might also look at how other people have been able to solve a similar problem. So comparable context. So, you could go to another sector and see what's going on there and what inspires you, or what you can learn from them.
And I think this learning process is so important and often overlooked, because you can jump to assumptions and draw conclusions that might not be true. And speaking of learning, speaking of work, you guys put into Innovation in Action book not just the years of writing, but over a decade of building the framework. Can you dive into the backstory on how the book can actually come into reality?
I'd love to. Thanks for that. So my co-author, the lead author, is Dr. Christian Walsh, and he's a friend, a colleague, mentor, and so he first become interested in design thinking and took over a course at the University of Canterbury and started to teach the course content. And what he quickly realised is that there were a lot of questions and a lot of projects that didn't progress as many of the MBA students had sort of hoped. And so recognise that actually there's a missing components here, which is actually how do we get things resourced and implemented. And so Christian spent a lot of time developing out this framework and an initial set of tools. And then from myself, about 6 years ago, once I went through Christian's course, for me, this was just a light bulb moment. I'd come from a financial services background, and it was very much that, and included in my management sort of background, it's very much there is one right answer, there is one way to achieve this thing, a better outcomes. And so for me, engaging a more creative process, a more human-centered, orientated process for making decisions and going about your work was just a game changer for me. And so together, what we've been doing, very much it's been focused around MBA students, executive education as well, and I've been consulting. Christian also consults, and many of the projects that have been worked across with those 150 projects are across those various sectors from some of these students, but also when they finish their MBAs, they're continuing on using this model. And so what that has done over time is we've really been able to hone in and improve the model, but the tools that underpin for various situations.
And what's the commonality that you guys saw through the projects in the build-up of the framework? What's the things that people often overcomplicate?
Overcomplicate. Look, I think with all of this, if we're going to achieve long-term sustainable change, it's really looking to try and make this happen with people, not to people. And I think that that's often the mistake. And with some of the change models, look, I think there's value in all of this. And I just want to say that whatever Christian and I have developed have been off the back of a lot of great work that a lot of people have put in. And I think it will continue to evolve. But I think that sometimes these are processes of, well, we just complete a roadmap, that we just do this and it will happen. But life's not like that, as we start to implement things, we need to continually be open to change and emergent information. And so I think this is the piece that people sort of really underplay or perhaps don't work on the most, is that in order for this to actually be implemented and actually get traction for the long term, people need to actually want to commit to it. That's probably the better word, is rather than compliance. We want people that are actually going to take this and run with it and actually contribute. It's a real co-creation piece, I believe, for the long term, with various stakeholders, whether it's being on the resourcing front or whether it's actually hands-on the implementing piece. So I really think that it's co-creation, it's doing it with people, not to people.
Yeah, because often if you do it without them, you cannot, it's impossible to come up with a solution that actually has a huge impact without involving others. And on that note, you mentioned there are 4 barriers to implementation that people got stuck to. Can you share those with me?
Yes, so we have habits. So, again, speaking to whenever we're looking to innovate, to make change, we're asking people to do something different. And if they've been doing that for a long time, there's they have to sort of change the way that they're doing things. So there is that habit that we need to break through. Because when we're building more positive products and services into market, habits are a really good thing that we're looking to sort of establish with consumers and such. But the flip side is that can be a bit of a blocker at times. Then we're talking about fear, and look, often it's not about not the actual change itself, but basically how it's going to affect them and what their future holds for them. So that's that more personal kind of fear. Then there's the environment piece, and so with the environment, we're talking about typically like systems, processes, but also the physical environment. So if we think about a system or process, maybe it's the incentives, or maybe it's the procurement process. Are these streamlined? Are they creating blockers? Are they creating frustrations for people? Things like that. But also the physical environment. And I suppose one thing that to speak to there is, let's say, Jeff or Amazon's one-click button, right? Amazon might not have perhaps the best looking website in the world, but they certainly understood what people are looking to do is to buy something, and they made it very, very easy with that one-click sort of ordering. So if we think about that in an organization, if we're trying to implement, so how do we shape things, the physical structures as well, so that it just makes it easier to make the preferred choice. And then lastly, we're talking about group dynamics, right? So often we're in social sort of scenes, we're not wanting to sort of break away from the norms and essentially stick our neck out. So that can be challenging for many people as well. So I think the other sort of 4 key areas on that social front that we really need to sort of try and work with and redesign new ways.
So to recap then, so habits, fear, environment, and group dynamics. And from these ones, which one is the one that, let's call it silent killer, that leaders consistently underestimate?
Yeah, well, I think with 3 of them, such as habit, fear, and group dynamics, I think they tend to surface in more observable ways. There's friction, frustration, that emotions that'll come out, that sort of thing, and you'll be able to observe whether people are working in different ways or whether they're reverting back to their old ways, that sort of thing as well. So I feel that the silent piece is probably the environment. We think that the way that we've always done things, if things are not broken, why fix them, that sort of thing. So, but anytime we're introducing something new, it has to kind of interact with what's already happening in the system, if you like. And so I think that it's that environment piece that really helps, I suppose, support and shape better decisions when there's kind of rational mind happening and also the emotional state of people. I think that shaping the environment is really key.
And can you give me some specific examples from either your consulting practice or some that you might share in the book that people will get a better picture of how environment can truly impact in a positive or negative way innovation?
So think about that. So I guess sort of speaking to, it's probably mistakes that I first made when I started working in this way. What I didn't really understand was the environment that I was going into as doing a piece of consulting, and it just seems so common sense. But what I was doing was coming in there as this design thinking expert to be able to help reshape some services. And what I started to try to implement things that were definitely, if they were implemented, take us in a better direction. But what I started finding was there was resistance around. It was such a foreign thing that I was introducing into this environment for these people that it was just a stretch too far. And so I like to think a little bit of, meet people where they're at, but sort of introduce step by step. And in order to understand that, some sectors, some companies are going to be ready for that a lot earlier as opposed to other organizations. So I really think you've got to tailor your approach and how you start shaping the environment to these organisations. So as I said, there was resistance, there was complaints about the changes that were coming in. So management were getting pressure from that, and then they were concerned that they were on the wrong path with this consulting. So I certainly learnt the hard way that even as a consultant, I need to sort of be very wary of the environment I'm going into, and help shape them in a way that, as I say, they will start to adopt at the pace that they are ready for.
And that's so common, right? Because often especially when we start something, we truly have not enough background on how probably that organization is working, or what are the resistance, their environment, and so on. And definitely a learning curve for you there, but look where that led. And speaking of design thinking, and especially DUCTRI framework, can you, for those that are not aware, break down the name, what DUCTRI truly means?
Yeah, sure. So DUCTRI is an acronym for discovering, understanding, creating, testing, resourcing, and implementing. And so it's all about action and thinking. So typically people think of design thinking as what? Well, it's all very much a thinking piece, and absolutely it is. But in order to sort of catalyze thinking and moving in better directions, we also need this action piece. So discovering is about, as I was saying, going out to where the people are experiencing the problems, learning firsthand in these real world settings as best you can, and then understanding the other layers. moving into the understanding, that's actually deriving insight. And so it's very much about divergence and convergence, which is very typical. There's a term called the double diamond. That's essentially design thinking, and so this model is a triple diamond. So very much converging out about learning, about having more options, and then making some choices. And so when we get down to the understanding piece, that's having more clarity about the needs and insights, and also forming your point of view about what the real problem is. Not to say that that's right, but you have a lot more clarity at that point. And then we go into, well, if this is the real problem, how do we go about actually creating some innovative ideas around this? And so, again, creating is about having options, there's lots of good evidence that more ideas often outperform trying to come up with a perfect idea. And also good idea generation and solutioning sort of takes time. We need to percolate, we need to incubate these ideas. And so that's the piece also that I'm a little bit concerned about with the AI front as well. But so we're going out, we create a whole lot of ideas, and then once we sort of identified sort of 2 or 3 that we think are really hitting the mark, then we'll go, well, how do we test these ideas or parts of that? What are the assumptions that are underpinning this and underpinning these, and how do we learn? What are the things that have to be true in order for this to succeed? And so we start testing, we start prototyping, but with real users, with the people that are going to have to change their behaviour or looking to adopt this new service or product. We're looking for actual actions again from these people. So we might start off with we could even be testing just verbally a value proposition, something like that, to see what resonates. But as we go on and we're looking to sort of increase the fidelity of these tests, we're trying to also de-risk at the same time. And so that's why we incrementally build on the fidelity of these tests, of these experiments. And then once we think, hey, look, this idea or this prototype that looks like it has legs. Okay, so how might we actually resource this? And so that's looking at things like what is the business model here? What is the right story to communicate? It's looking at not just financial resources, but also social capital, that sort of thing. What are we going to need? And open innovation, like who else can add to this? Or if we're not the right people for part of this problem, how can we connect in and build this in a partnership way? And then ultimately the implementing. And so largely what we focus around here, because we're looking at this as a political, social piece in terms of change and shaping those sort of four main blockers that we talked through before. Then as we zero in and we get more and more clarity about how we're actually going to bring this to market from the resources and everything we've just described, then we should have more and more clarity. But again, it's about doing it with people. It's a constant process of learning, but more and more clarity over time.
Indeed, and I think that's the beauty of human-led innovation, rather than just relying on AI to spill ideas and quote-unquote validate ideas, because you can actually see real user using your tool. And yeah, maybe we'll be arriving at a point where AI users will test your product or your MVP and so on, but they might not find the bottlenecks, or they won't understand that what are the solutions that you're actually trying to solve and so on. And if you go on that route, like let's say you have an idea, but you're not sure about it, and you mentioned that you need a lot of ideas ideally. What would be your take when it comes with using AI for that, and if on how to use it?
Yeah, great question. So AI, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. It can really compress the front end. So I think there's great potential here for some of the research side of things. So some of the discovering and understanding piece, and that's already starting to happen. There's lots of tools there. But however, even in that front, I think that the challenge with when we're looking to really gain insight, the challenge with AI is that it tends to find the averages, and so often in innovation, we're not looking for something that's average, that's already being done, right? And it's about finding these novel, these unique pieces. And so I think that's the nuance piece. I think that's still not quite there with AI. And so, but I think it's a great way to start. It's a great way of stopping the blank page sort of issue. You can get going. Like, I certainly start off with a bit of a background, what's in the sector, what challenges may I face, that sort of thing. But I try not to do too much, because in the early stage, what we're really looking to do is find out what's interesting, what's revealing, rather than representative stuff. So we want to be diving into people's life experiences and that sort of thing is not in AI, right? So, but I do think it can help there, definitely. And then when we're going into prototyping, creating ideas, absolutely. Look, AI can come up with 100 ideas in an instance. However, can it really come up with better ideas? Well, I think at times it probably can, but overall, we find that intuition, tacit knowledge, those nuances that you find by doing deep discovering work, well, that really comes into better solutions. But again, I think it's a great place to have to and fro with AI, treating it as a co-creator, as a teammate. I think that's super valuable, because you build on the ideas. So while it might not come up with the ultimate, the final idea, it may help you get there. And then I think in some of these tangible sort of prototyping pieces, so you can quickly whip up a website in a couple of minutes, and put that in front of a potential customer and get some feedback. So I think it's super valuable. But I also think that there's still some risk with it in terms of not potentially deriving that core insight, and therefore not the real problem that we're trying to solve that will give us a unique advantage. I also think that we run the risk, because as humans we tend to have an approach of jumping to that solutioning really quick, and I think if AI is providing that ability to compress, I think what will happen is it becomes more of a scattergun approach, rather than, as I say, understanding that deep problem. And I think we're starting to see information, and maybe because I'm kind of looking for it that I'm finding it, but I think we're starting to see more evidence, more conversation coming out about how many AI ventures are failing, that they're missing the mark, that they're not actually resonating with customers, that sort of thing. And so it just becomes, a volume game, as opposed to a actual quality and insight sort of led approach. And ultimately, I think AI is not going to be able to help so much on the resourcing and implementing front. So if we're talking about people needing to change their behaviours, that very much is it's a human-led, understanding people, how we can shift behaviour, and I don't sort of see AI playing too much of that. So it certainly has its pluses, but I think there's some things that we need to be really cautious about in innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. And because no matter how good the output AI can spit out nowadays, it's so good at people pleasing, and you will think like, oh my god, it's almost like reading my mind, or this solution looks perfect, this idea is brilliant, and so on. But in reality, it's just a predicting mechanism, and there is no real like human-led curiosity. Or to quote a previous guest in the podcast, Mike Montague, he said like, AI can share a story, but it cannot share your story. And I think that's where human comes in, right? And especially because like when I read the subtitle of the book, so underneath innovation action, it's unlock curiosity, creativity, and clarity with the DUCTRI toolkit. And that piece, curiosity, I think that's what makes humans special, because we are driven by that. We love to stay curious in order to evolve, to learn, and so on. And please take me to the next level here. Like, how, as an innovator, as a leader, I can go to the next level when it comes to curiosity, especially now when we have information so easy accessible.
Yeah, for me, it's you need to create the conditions for that curiosity, right? So you need to be enabling time and space. For me, it's a real cultural aspect. So if you're a leader that is focused on purely ROI and that people are executing, well, innovation just won't work. It may work in a one-off when organizations realize that they're struggling and that they put all their resources behind trying to find a new growth product or service, but it won't be sustainable. And so I firmly believe that in order to continually be innovative and to find those new avenues, new business models, we need to continually be curious. There's this concept of beginner's mind, and within design thinking, and it's trying to come at a problem or just at your day with fresh eyes all the time. And so to enable that, I think you need to give people time and space. You need to provide trust and autonomy in their roles that they're able to get on, but also perhaps lock out, provide that 10% of their day is that they can follow areas of interest, so that the more curious they are, the more they'll discover, the more that they will then bring into the workplace and add that value. But it's intangible. You don't know that this is actually going to result in something. And so I think that this is a real fear, because many leaders in organizations have come through the sort of the management kind of piece. I mean, I've done an MBA, which is management, but in reality, you can't manage so well something that is unpredictable, something that's complex and ambiguous. These problems that we're facing, we need to be really adaptable. We need to be really curious and explore what's going on, and that means that we need to create freedom for people to do that. It means that we need sort of stimulating environments. We need to shape people, and it could be something as simple as like ask a question on a board and let people over a week or two put their perspectives on things. So, during that time, they're probably going to do a little bit of digging around and such and come back with new information. So, yeah, strengthening curiosity in organizations. Well, I think it's actually like Google. I think they have a policy of like 10% that you can be working on one project of your own. So it may or may not be related so closely with their role. And, I think keeping that in mind and trying to get to a place that works for your organization, I think that's a great way forward.
Yeah, I love it. And especially because when you have those creative endeavors, when you're not truly quote unquote working on the job, but rather like following your curiosity or following your instincts and so on, there the innovation can happen. And a lot of the products, especially when mentioning Google, a lot of the products that we're actually using nowadays, from my understanding, came out through those side projects, and same for other big companies. And I think another untapped potential is to, speaking of space, to allow people to truly disconnect from their day-to-day activities and let them be in that state in which they can explore not just ideas, but truly explore the surroundings, like going out for a walk rather than sitting in front of the laptop and so on, because often innovation comes from there. And speaking of shaping your environment, because imagine if you're sitting at a desk or in a cubicle and so on, without even seeing outside or without even having the sense that there is something beyond the screen, it's so hard to come up with great ideas or to like have a breakthrough in the things that we are working on. And yeah, I think that should be like a thing for more companies. And now, when it comes to going back a bit to the implementation part, because no matter how great the idea is, it's, I assume, one of the reasons you guys wrote the book, because we need to make that idea happen. And was the quote-unquote easiest way to do it, if you validate it, it's ready to go, and to put it in the world? Like, what will be the steps to do it?
Yeah, love that. If I can, I'd just like to add a little bit to what we were talking about before. Sure. As well, just around, this culture aspect, and there's a lot of components to foster an innovative or a curious culture as well. But I really want to speak to the psychological safety and how important the leadership is. And I think of Amy Edmondson, and she came up with this concept of intelligent failure. So if we're thinking about intelligent failure, so we were using hypothesis-driven sort of approaches on the sort of fringes of what we're trying to do in terms of exploration for new ideas and things. So, how do you do that in an organisation? They're used to just purely delivering for today and in a very stable environment. So often when we see organisations trying to do innovation and create their own innovation lab, there's it's a totally different cultural fit. However, sort of in the long run, they have to kind of work together and I suppose create a new culture. So I think this psychological safety, and in real practical terms, can people feel that they're able to speak their mind without repercussion, obviously in professional ways, but, and that can be, hey, I've got a great new idea, and they're encouraged to actually follow that in an intelligent way, So, this whole piece around culture, leadership piece, I think and setting the environment for people to feel safe to explore, I think is really, really important.
I love that you add that, because indeed it's so important, and a lot of innovation comes around that, right? Like the right culture, the right environment, and I was asking about the steps to turn that idea into action.
Yeah, look, one thing I would love to sort of have your audience take away, Gabe, is there are lots of different sort of models to sort of help people adopt new ways, change their behaviour. But one that we love and we often use, and it's in the book. It is not our particular model. We use a slightly different take on it, but it's from Chip and Dan Heath. So they're professors from Stanford in the US, and they come up with the concept of direct the rider, motivate the elephant, and shape the path. And so, if we think about that, so you mentioned what looks like resistance is often a lack of clarity, and so this direct the rider piece is speaking to people's rational minds. So, we've got in psychology, there's this theory called dual process theory, and so we have system one, which is like our fight or flight, but it's like the feelings, emotion, intuition, and then there's system two, which is like and so that's system one is obviously older, and then sort of more recent is system two, which is like speech and logic, and so that's really speaking to system two, which is the analytical piece. So this is about again following what's working. It's also about scripting really clearly just the core critical moves, not overloading people, but saying, hey, look, do this, do this, do this. and pointing to the destination, so like a near-term goal. So again, we have to be, all of these interrelate with each other. So as an example, with a near-term goal, if we put a goal too far away, then people will feel, oh, that, I can't get there. But if it's, hey, it's maybe achievable within 12 to 24 months, well, we know where we're heading and it feels achievable, and we'd go step by step. And then motivating the elephant. And so as an example, the other thing that's often misdiagnosed is when people perhaps appear that they're being lazy or whatever, it's often that they're exhausted. Often an organization is delivering that business as usual, and there's been new initiative after new initiative, and people are tired and they're under a lot of pressure the whole time. And so there's this concept of the burning platform. So look, that can be really useful to inspire urgency. But if we're thinking about long-term change, well, we need something that's a bit more intrinsic often. And so it's about trying to shape up and find the feeling about why they would be connected to this change. It's about positive emotions. As I say, it's shrinking that change so it feels achievable, and it's also definitely about providing the enough support structures in behind. So what is it they need? How do we grow our people so that they can build this positive and push forward? When we're thinking about the rider and the elephant, who do you think will win when people are tired? Is it the rider saying go this way, or is it the elephant saying no, I want to go this way?
The elephant, obviously.
Exactly. So when people are really tired and stressed, the emotional state will win. And so even though it might seem really logical and clear that we need to do this, people's behavior will be shaped by the emotions. And so then lastly, to underpin all this, the third piece of that framework is shaping the path. And so this speaks to what's called fundamental attribution error. So often we attribute, let's say, poor decisions or things that are out of place to the specific person rather than the environment. What we want to do is enable changes around the supporting systems, processes, structures, or norms that are in place, plus the physical environment to make the preferred choice easier. So as an example, if we're talking about sort of part of that is also building habits in the way that we're looking. So as an example, in this situation, I do this. So when Y happens, I will do this action. And so it could be something like, as an example, I remember helping in one particular area where it was like this organization was super under pressure, resource constrained, and I was looking to introduce something additional to their workday. What we did was, the most important thing was when they do this and this component they needed to do as part of their shutdown for the day, when this happens, they just do this one extra step. And so I was able to piggyback off what was already happening in their day and making it really easier. They didn't have to context switch and go away from the area. It was right there. They could just take that next one step. And then it's definitely making things social. So showing the wins, showing the progress, just like in terms of that group dynamics, when people feel that we're starting to win, success is contagious. And so I think that's really important in terms of shaping that path piece.
Yes, indeed. And I think through these frameworks, through Innovation Action book that you and Dr. Christian Walsh wrote, you guys are shaping the innovators of tomorrow. And I know that currently it's available for pre-order on Amazon and will hit the bookstore in July. For anyone listening and watching, I highly recommend them get the book. And now, especially in the age of AI, it's more important than ever to use these principles to shape the products that we're creating and to truly innovate and impact others. And to conclude, I have a final question for you. Since you're here for the second time on the show, is there any thoughts or ideas that you had 3 years ago that are not longer valid, or you don't really believe in them anymore?
You bring out the tough questions for the second time round, Gabe. Look, reflecting on this, I think that it's not so much that have significantly changed or flipped. I think my sense of, now that I've worked in this space for 6 years, and I think previously it was a couple of years ago that I was fortunate to be on your show, is that everything I've learned since sort of leads me to believe that this way of working is very important for the way of the future. You know, if you look at what predictions or expectations around what skill sets are needed, it's all around creativity, it's around influence, it's around creative problem solving, it's around analytical problem solving, as well as understanding AI and data. So everything that I think has sort of come out into the book has only really strengthened my belief that design thinking, this way of approach, enabling people, working with people, co-creation is just super valuable, and I think I'm only going deeper into that way of working.
Love it. And cannot thank you enough for sharing this and for sharing the insights and writing the book. So can't wait to hear people's thoughts once they watch the episode, once they read the book, and share what they're building, share what they're innovating, and obviously, hopefully, they put into action. Thank you so much again for coming in.
Gabe, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you again, and really hope that there's something of value here for your audience. I know I certainly take a lot from your podcast as well over the years.
Thank you. I appreciate you.